In the week between the Monaco and Belgian Grand Prix, an agreement was signed in the Middle East that Israeli forces would withdraw from Lebanon, with the Lebanese army taking over the job of preventing PLO attacks on Israel from bases in South Lebanon. The City of London introduced what was then known as the Denver Boot, now better known as the Wheel Clamp, a bid to tackle illegal parking in the crowded city. The City of Denver had been successfully using the system since the 1950s. And the English FA Cup final saw Manchester United play out a 2-2 draw with Brighton and Hove Albion after extra time. With just seconds to go, Brighton were left to rue a late missed chance.
Yeah, ball played forward to Robinson. Robinson going forward strong. He's inside the Manchester United penalty area. He finds Smith, and Smith must score, and he hasn't scored.
The replay was scheduled for a week's time while "And Smith Must Score" became the name of a Brighton fanzine. The Spa-Francorchamps circuit in the beautiful rolling Ardennes had held its first motor race in 1925, and the 15-kilometre circuit became one of the great venues for motorsport through the pre-war and post-war eras, vying with the Nürburgring for the title of most challenging circuit, with the Master Kink being regarded as one of the most difficult corners anywhere in the world. Like the Nürburgring, however, it became obvious as the 1960s wore on that the circuit simply wasn't safe enough, with high speeds throughout, combined with famously changeable weather conditions and difficult access for emergency vehicles. Drivers, led by Jackie Stewart, who'd had a nasty crash himself there, boycotted the 1969 race and demanded improvements. The 1970 event ran, but even with the addition of Armco barriers it wasn't enough, and that was the last race at the old circuit. In 1979 the circuit was drastically cut back from 15 kilometres to 7 in a bid to return to the F1 calendar. The Master Kink was gone forever, but the La Source hairpin, now immediately after the start line, and famous Eau Rouge Radion combination remained intact, and the circuit's characteristic rolling landscapes and fast corners were preserved to an extent. So when the F1 teams arrived in Spa from Monaco, there was excitement to see the new track and have a go on some of these famous corners. Making a Grand Prix debut would be Belgian Thierry Boutsen, taking Chico Serra's seat thanks to local rug makers Louis de Portera, but otherwise there was no change since the last race, as the teams prepared to take stock of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Thierry Boutsen began his racing career at the age of 18, joining the Pillet Racing School at Zolder in 1975 as an engineering student. Soon giving up his academic career to concentrate on racing, he bought himself a Formula Ford 1600 car and entered the Benelux Series in 1977, moving to a customer chassis the following year and winning the championship with an 11 out of 16 win record. This moved him up to F3, where he won 3 races to come second to Michele Alboreto in the European F3 Series, and onwards into F2 with the Works March team for 1981. He finished second to Jeff Lees in the 1981 championship and moved to the Spirit Honda team, who were preparing an F1 challenge for 1983. He won 3 times for the team, but ultimately his reputation as a coming man ended up working against him. Spirit wanted a low-key entry into Formula 1 and opted for Boutsen's teammate Stefan Johansson, who was seen as having blown his earlier chance. While there were a few who predicted organisational teething troubles at a track that hadn't hosted a race in over a decade, things went remarkably smoothly, and it quickly became obvious that the drivers were loving the new circuit, with pundits particularly singling out Tambay, Lafitte and Sciurra as great to watch for their delicate touch, Rosberg and De Cesaris for their gung-ho attacking attitudes, and of course Alain Prost for his almost superhuman precision. Just as in Monaco, Saturday's session was wet, and so it was Friday's first session times that determined the grid, with Prost and Tambay on the front row, De Cesaris an excellent third alongside Piquet, with Arnoux and Patrese on row 3, Winkelhock a good 7th next to Cheever, and Rosberg and Sciurra the top non-turbos in 9th and 10th. Thierry Boutsen qualified a creditable 18th, ahead of Mansell and Watson, while Lauda was just ahead of him in 15th. Ghinzani and Salazar were, as usual, the 2 non-qualifiers, both some distance off Bozel's time at the back of the grid. Sunday was grey and overcast, but dry for now, and most teams were planning to start on half-tanks and make a stop. And at 2:30 p.m. they set off for the warm-up lap, but when they reassembled for the start, Marc Sciurra was having gearbox trouble. The race organisers signalled a cancelled start by changing the lights from red to flashing yellow, but at the front, Prost and De Cesaris set off as soon as the reds went out and spent half a lap going at it hammer and tongs while the rest filtered round. Black flags were held out to get De Cesaris and Prost to slow down, and the field reassembled for another go. With refuelling not permitted on the grid and all the cars having done the false start lap and a new parade lap, the race was reduced from 42 to 40 laps, and finally things got going again with the hapless Sierra now starting from the pits. There were no problems with the second start, as De Cesaris got a perfect launch to squeeze between Prost and Arnoux and take the lead, chased by the Renault and the Ferrari, with Arnoux and Patrese bumping wheels but both making it through. As the field came through to complete the first lap, De Cesaris still led from Prost, Tambay and Arnoux, with Piquet 5th and Winkelhock now 6th ahead of Patrese. As in Long Beach last year, De Cesaris looked happy enough in the lead, even with Prost sitting right on his tail and not allowing him to relax. Patrese, meanwhile, had fallen by the wayside already, his engine going on lap 1, and Rosberg was now up to 7th. De Cesaris had yet to finish a race in 1983, and when Baldi dropped out with a stuck throttle on lap 4, pundits wondered aloud how much longer the Alfa Romeo would last, but for the moment the top 7 cars were running close together, and Andrea remained comfortably in the lead. In fact, he was actually beginning to pull away from Prost, who was having to look over his shoulder at Tambay, who in turn had Arnoux trying to get past. Thierry Boutsen's debut, meanwhile, proved short-lived, suspension problems seeing his arrows out on lap 5, while a couple of laps later Watson and Jarier tangled in midfield and both were out. Rosberg managed to get past Winkelhock as the German's BMW engine stuttered on the exit from Eau Rouge on lap 11, and the Finn set off in pursuit of Piquet, who was climbing all over the back of Arnoux, trying to get into 4th. The Ferrari driver had charged too hard too early and was now struggling on worn tyres and dropping behind Tambay by a second a lap, and soon enough Rosberg was up with the pair of them. Eventually, at the start of lap 17, Piquet got through at Eau Rouge, and now Arnoux had Rosberg climbing about behind him, while Chiva was now approaching the pair. Behind him, Lafitte was 8th, with the Tolmans of Warwick and Giacomelli 9th and 10th, having come up well from a disappointing qualifying session. By now, half-distance was approaching, and De Cesaris was the first to make his fuel stop, coming in from the lead on lap 20. The Alfa Romeo mechanics had some difficulties getting him out in a relatively pedestrian 25.33 seconds, and 6th on the track. Winkelhoff went off when a wheel fell off his ATS at speed, and by the time the pit stops had all shaken out, the Renault boys had got Prost out in a fast 14.42 seconds to put him in the lead on the track, while Arnoux's engine packed up on lap 23. So on lap 25, Prost led De Cesaris, then Piquet, Tambay, Chiva and Rosberg making up the top 6. With Prost some 9 seconds ahead of De Cesaris, it looked all over as a contest, and as if to ensure it, the Alfa Romeo's fuel injection system packed up on lap 26 and put the unfortunate Andrea out. With Prost thus firmly ensconced in the lead, Tambay provided some interest by chipping away at Piquet's lead, which was helped when the Brabham developed a spot of gearbox trouble and he couldn't shift into 5th. So the Frenchman and Eddie Chiva both got past in the closing stages, much to the vocal approval of the local crowd, who didn't appear to be big fans of either Bernie or Nelson. Alain Prost cruised serenely to his 7th career win, with Tambay 2nd, Chiva 3rd and Piquet 4th. Keke Rosberg and Jacques Lafitte brought the two Williamses home 5th and 6th, while the Tolmans came home together, agonisingly out of the points in 7th and 8th. Despite, in Giacomelli's case, apparently expiring in a smoky cloud near the end, only to get it going again and drag it across the finish line. So, with Prost and Renault taking over the leads of their respective championships, the teams packed up for the mid-season North American Tour, with the Dallas and Canadian Grand Prix kicking off in a couple of weeks' time.